The McKell Institute was established, and we had many wonderful teachers, some of which are present tonight, and a wonderful staff that kept us going and proved to be a successful program. The emphasis at the Institute was on continuity of consciousness. Now, this program came to be not because of my work so much, but it was really inspired. It was inspiration that brought this to be. And many of us put it together, were able to create a 4-year program. So tonight it's going to be a little bit challenging to get 4 years in just this brief period of time. However, I will attempt to give you the basics of continuity of consciousness and how it relates to conscious dying. I know that you probably read what continuity of consciousness is, and I'll just briefly tell you once again what we're looking at. There are 3 stages of continuity of consciousness that we are aware of. And the first being the experience of lucid dreaming, which is an ability to remain conscious even in your dream state. The second is simultaneous consciousness on both the physical plane and the higher planes. And the third is the ability to remain conscious through death into life after death. Now, you may have a different concept of what of conscious dying is, but I'm going to approach it from continuity of consciousness aspect. And so hopefully tonight you will get an idea as to how this pertains to you and how you will have some tools from what I will talk about tonight to help you gain the concept of continuity of consciousness and work with it. Again, it's only going to be a brief summary, but I will try and get through this and give you as much information as possible. The very first step is that we need to work with meditation and prayer and reflection. But it's important to understand the levels of consciousness that we are working with and through in order to get to that point of working with continuity of consciousness. So I'm going to speak briefly about the levels of consciousness. If you see on the first level, it's the physical and dense that we all live in. Then there is a physical etheric, which is we all have an etheric body and we are working with that consciously or unconsciously. Then we move into the astral plane of consciousness. Now, on the lower astral, it is more about emotions and about personality. It is really related to the solar plexus chakra. The lowest level of the astral plane, you might think in terms of that is more negative. It is, you might say, if someone has, because of a drinking problem, has DTs, it is coming from that lower astral. Or if someone had a bad drug trip, they will see things that are in that lower astral. We're not really interested in the lower astral. We're going to look at the higher. The higher astral is more where the psychic experiences can be, where people may have impressions. This is where creativity lies. This is where it's the first step in the clarity of your mind and self and impressions that you might receive. So people that are having impressions in their meditation in particular, you might think, they may come from that higher mental. It is higher astral. They are the first step in moving into higher states of consciousness. So it is very individual, but it is in fact that you can receive from that level. And it is an important level, and it usually is the first step in recognizing that you may have some gifts given to you, spiritual gifts that are being given to you. Then we move to the lower mental. Now this focuses really on your mind. It is more the ability to focus on the mind and be receptive. Generally, there are some emotional attachments with this, but working with it helps to bring the mind and heart together into a higher mind. And so when we move into the higher mental, this is the most important place, you might say. This is where the level of the soul resides. It's important to realize that the soul is the mediator or the middle principle. It is neither spirit nor matter, but the relationship between the two. The soul is a group consciousness and is one with all other souls. The soul overshadows the personality and connects with the individual by the silver thread or the silver cord that's spoken about in the Bible. During the entire span of your lifetime on Earth, you are connected to that silver cord. The personality is a soul's instrument of expression on the physical plane. Understanding the knowledge of the soul comes with time and commitment. Continuity of consciousness is not possible without touching into the soul level. As you work with continuity of consciousness, you will form a more permanent relationship with the soul. The connection is known as the soul infusion and also called the soul alignment. This is to say, your personality becomes infused with the soul and the soul energy. Your personality is enhanced with the knowledge of the soul, wisdom, and its energy. For the purpose of service to humanity is important to remember. It is for the purpose of humanity. It is not for personal use. It is not to say that at this point you lose your personality, but rather it is enhanced by the soul energy. One thing to remember though, even if you reach that point of that connection and that infusion of that soul energy, you still have to deal with your own personality. We all have things within our personality that need to be worked on. And so you have to think in terms of you're still working on your own shadows, those things that may not seem perfect to you, but we are all in the world to become and work towards that perfection. However, just because you have reached a certain level of enlightenment does not mean that the personality will be perfect. At this level, group consciousness and oneness and unity and service to humanity exist. This is where we are aiming to work towards that sense of group, that's oneness and wholeness. The soul connection is the beginning of the opening to expanding consciousness, even higher levels of consciousness, into the higher level, what we call the intuitional level. The intuitional level is where true intuition comes from. On the higher astral plane, it is more a psychic experience. But when you move into a higher state of awareness, intuition, true intuition, comes forth. This is also known as the Buddhic plane, and it is spiritual level. At some point, you may be able to reach into the spiritual level as well. Most of us are in that transition of moving into higher states, but very likely you are not going to move beyond that spiritual level in this lifetime. One of the ways in order to begin to work with continuity of consciousness is to recognize the soul and that you are the soul. The soul mantra is a tool that you can use in order to start working towards that connection with the soul if you have not already gained that connection. When you say the soul mantra, the soul is talking as to you. So when you say, I am the soul, that is fine. And also love am I. Above all else, I am both will and fixed design. Now, at this point, it says, my will is now to lift the lower self. So the soul is speaking now. The lower self is the light divine. That light am I. Therefore, I must descend to where that lower self awaits my coming. That which desires to lift and that which cries for lifting are now at one. Such is my will. If you want to abbreviate this, you can just remind yourself, I am the soul on a daily basis. This is going to help you come into that consciousness of the soul. It is going to help bring that infusion of the soul energy to you. And this is the first step, really, in trying to make that connection and to keep reminding yourself and reinforcing that you are that soul. This is one of the very first tools, I might say, that I used, and it was given to us at the seminary. And many of you are familiar probably with the soul mantra. If you are not, it is something, again, even if you can't say the entire soul mantra, at least say to yourself, I am the soul, several times a day. It will bring that energy toward you and your personality. What I'm going to do is to give you the higher consciousness exercise that was given to me at the Institute. Now, this is not my creation. This was an inspiration that came to me. And I do not have the best of memories, but yet when this came to me, I never forgot it. And we used it all through the 4-year program for every class that we had. And this was another tool that was used in order to move into that higher state of consciousness. And through it, it is to bring us into that sense of oneness. It is there in order to give you that sense of that light which is within you, which is the soul, and is to connect with all other lights. We are one, and we are one with all, but we are all one with everything, but in particular with other souls. And so when we say this, we're going to be trying to connect on a higher level. Now, when we move the consciousness up to the higher levels, if you experience at the point when we come to the head centers, if you're feeling any pressure or sensations, I would suggest that you just stay at that point and do not continue on. Sometimes it takes a little time in order to be able to move into that higher state of consciousness. There is a different vibration. It is much higher vibration than in your normal state of being. And so just to be comfortable, we want you not to move beyond that point when we move into the head centers. There's going to be a diagram which we'll show after our break that will give you a sense of where you are and how you're positioned in a sense, and where the soul, what we call the soul, the soul star comes in. We're going to show that and give you a visual so you can see how we are moving the energy and the consciousness up into those higher levels. So what I would like you to do, I want you to try and get comfortable. Take a few breaths and relax and close your eyes. If you're comfortable, place your tongue at the roof of your mouth. So we shall begin. We call upon the saints and sages and the holy ones, the divine feminine, the masters, the angels, and the archangels. We ask for your protection, your light, your love, and your direction as we do our work tonight. See a line of energy coming out from your heart center, and allow that energy to meet with the line of energy from your head centers. Allow that energy now to move to the right, sending forth your love and light, and being receptive to the love and light of each member in our circle. As we create the center of energy, let us place in the center our own personal intentions and needs that they may be made manifest. Now let us place in the center all our own personal intentions and needs. Then let us place in the center all those who have requested healing. And then place in the center all those who are about to make their transition or who have recently made their transition. Now take your attention to your heart center. Allow the energy from the heart to move into the throat center. Then continuing on to the head centers. Now move the consciousness to the soul star, which is about 6 to 8 inches above the head. See it as a bright ball of light. As you enter into the soul star, remind yourself you are the soul, you are the light. Allow the energy of the soul to flow down and around and about you, enclosing you in a triangle of light. Then allow the light of the soul to move down through the head centers, down the spinal column. Allow the light to permeate every cell and organ of your body and all your bodies. Then allow that light to move out even beyond your physical form, blending with all other lights in our group, and even out into the universe, blending with all other lights. We recognize our oneness while we hold our individuality. We are one. Then allow the consciousness to move back to the soul star. Again, reminding yourself you are the soul, you are the light. And then allow the consciousness to move into the upper chamber. Moving into higher states of consciousness. Now stay very alert. Hold your mind in the light, being receptive to that which is yours to know. And for a few moments, we'll be in the silence in that receptive mode, trying to keep the mind clear and open. And from this high place in consciousness, we'll say the great invocation together, reminding us of the plan and our part in that plan. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. And we give thanks for our many blessings. We ask for continued guidance and assistance as we move through our days. And now allow the conscious to move back into the physical form, allowing yourself to feel grounded and open and full of light. So be it. When you're ready, open your eyes. Now, I did that quickly in order to save on time here, and we did not have the picture or the slide brought up, so you didn't get to see the picture I wanted to show. Maybe you could show the slide now. There we go. This picture was to demonstrate that we're within the triangles, and when we talked about the upper chamber, it's a higher triangle above the soul star. So the soul star is connecting the physical with the spiritual. And in this picture, which has been altered a bit, many years ago, when I was at the seminary, we had a program, and we were to do spiritual art, and we were supposed to intuit what we were supposed to create. And I find myself making this diagram and not knowing what it meant. I had no idea what this was supposed to be. And years later, it came into my awareness what this was about. It was about this higher consciousness exercise, that we are in this lower form. We are yet part, and we're connected to the soul, and we're connected to those higher levels of consciousness. And so it was to be shown to you so you would have a visual. But anyway, hopefully this will help you understand where we were coming from. Now, with the higher consciousness exercise, it's just one of many tools. In the Eastern tradition, prayer, meditation, spiritual disciplines, and solitary life are ways in order to come into that continuity of consciousness. But in the Western tradition, we are less likely to be in solitude, that we're less likely to have the same kind of experience. And so we really are in need of other practices in order to get us into that state. Now, it's not to say that you can't move into higher states of consciousness without this, but this is one possibility or one tool you can use, this form of meditation. Recognize that you can move the consciousness into that higher level. But do know that you have to bring your mind and heart together. The heart chakra needs to be open in order to really move into higher mind. And that is something that we need to recognize. And when we say heart chakra, it isn't about emotional love. It's about love of humanity. It's about loving all. And so when the heart is open, it can then bring the mind into a higher state of awareness. And so this is something that is really needed for us in order to be able to move into being more evolved in our humanity. In order to really reach the soul, again, you're going to have to be able to move into that higher state of awareness. So if you think in terms of the states of consciousness, think in terms of the levels where you're at and how you're attempting to move into that higher mental and then beyond. So how would I say this? It's something that we need to work with consistently. We need to work with our meditations. We need to think in terms of moving that consciousness beyond, not just staying in a relaxed mode. Meditation can do many good things. It can help with our health. It can help with stress. It can help with so many things. But meditation also needs to be utilized in order to come into and have the awareness being, you might say, away from the body into those higher states of awareness. If we are determined to be more spiritually evolved, we need to do our practices. And it is important, if you are having difficulty with meditation, at least use your own spiritual means, prayer, or other ways of working in terms of trying to remember that we are more than just our human beings. We are interconnected with all. And in order to change our environment and in order to change what is taking place in the world, every step we take is important. It will help the world in its process of change. We're in a time of great difficulty, chaos, and challenges. Even the smallest effort in order to bring that consciousness of our oneness together helps to shift that consciousness and helps to bring a shift in what is taking place on the earth. I think maybe we could begin, if you'd like, to talk about the levels of continuity of consciousness in terms of lucid dreaming and dreams. In the Eastern tradition, they advocate that sleep and dreams is a preparation for death. When you think in terms of your dreams, you are out of the body. You are not recognizing the body. Your consciousness is working with any number of things. It can work with just your emotional state. It can work with bringing information to you about your spiritual state. It can be prophetic in the sense that you can receive information. Many people are not able to move into that lucid state consciously. It is, for me, lucid dreaming has occurred, but not on a regular basis. And lucid dreaming is when you are actually able to function within the dream, where you can change things, you can offer, you might say, ways of understanding and working with what is taking place in the dream. It is that you are fully conscious in that dream and you are working with the dream. That is something that does not come easily. First of all, when you dream, you need to record your dreams. You need to remember, try and put into place what the dreams are telling you. Now, there's some people here that I know that work with dreams very proficiently. I remember Marion in particular was very proficient in dream work. Dreams are, in fact, really that first stage of recognizing what will take place when you pass into your new life. So the more you can work with the dreams, the more you recognize what the dreams are telling you, it is going to help you in this process of preparing for death. It is one of the ways that we have a preview of what can take place when you leave your body, when you no longer are connected to the body. The consciousness remains. So in the dream state, it is that preview, you might say, of what can take place when you pass into your new life. If nothing else, have the intention that you're going to remember your dreams, but it is best even to write them down because there's a story there. In some cases, it's just working through some emotional trauma or some emotional thing that has taken place in your life, but that could also be a lesson for you, a learning lesson. It may be that you will actually have dreams that are repetitive. It will tell you what is going to be happening in your life. Years ago, when I was very young, I had a dream. And this dream repeated itself over the years. And in the dream, it was very simple. I was on a medical gurney. I had a man beside me and 3 children. And I was going into the delivery room. And I had a child. It was a girl child. And I was told her name was Julie. Well, that came to me. I ended up marrying a man who had 3 children. I ended up having to have a daughter who I named Julie. And that came to me from the time I was 19 until the time just before I had my child. And I finally realized what was going on. I had this dream all along, and I knew this was going to happen. So sometimes these things happen where, in fact, you are being told something is going to happen in your life. So I also remember having a dream, and I saw this foundation, and it was 4-quarter foundation, and I couldn't figure out what that all meant. Well, this is when I was in the process of being a seminary student, and I knew that that foundation had something to do with my work, but I didn't know what it was. And it came to be ultimately that that dream meant that it was a foundation. Actually, we called it a center, but it was the foundation or the Kellett Center. And so different times you will have these experiences. Make note of them. So in some cases, they'll be repetitive. In some cases, they will not. But if you recognize that you are getting messages, sometimes from a much higher level, it's important to recognize them and act upon them. So I truly believe that even if you are not able to move into the lucid dreaming stage, you still can receive messages because you're more receptive in that dream state, more receptive in your sleep state. Many of you probably are receptive beyond that in your waking state. But if nothing else, start with the dream, start with your remembrance, your recording, and look to your dreams because frequently a message is trying to come through to you. And frequently, for those that are beginning on their spiritual quest, they really are the first steps in recognizing that there is another level of consciousness that you can exist in and work with. In the normal day, many people are not aware that there is another level of awareness that they can move into. Most of you probably have already experienced this, but for the beginners, dreaming and dream work is very important for them to start recognizing those different levels. Now, let's go to the next step. The simultaneous consciousness of both the physical plane and the higher mental plane. As you recall on the levels of consciousness slide, when we move into that higher mental plane, their messages can come through. And what you're learning with continuity of consciousness is to be able to simultaneously recognize those messages coming through and still function in your normal state of being. You're not going to be in an altered state. When you meditate, generally you're in more of an altered state. This is where you're consciously alert and aware. You're not walking around in a daze. There'll be a point when you come into this state of consciousness that you will be able to simultaneously recognize that it is coming from a higher plane, that you are be given a message, and you still will function normally, but it will come in, it will stream in. Now this could be, it could be even in your meditation, but in most cases, what we're looking at in continuity consciousness is you're going to be able to function in the world and do the work you need to do and still be inspired, you might say. Now, frequently, these messages are very simultaneous and they are very clear. They come forth in a manner that is, you have a knowingness, you know what it means. It comes to you with great clarity. You may be able to put it into action at the moment, depending on what you're doing, but it may be for something that's coming forth. So this simultaneous reaction is you are aware, but yet you are functioning like any other normal person in the world. It is, this is going to be a way for guidance for you to be helped. And this is a way of service to humanity. In some cases, you will be inspired to speak to somebody about something. You will be inspired to write something. It will come through with clarity. Remember that it is all clear. There's no question about it. It is pure clarity. And so this is what our goal is in order to be able to function in the world and yet still be connected to those higher levels of awareness. This is part of who we can be. And we need to pay attention to that. If something comes to you, pay attention, but also continue to function in the normal state. We cannot all be in meditation at all times. We cannot all be in what you might call an altered state. This is not really an altered state. It is a true connection to those higher planes of awareness. From one age to the other, it's going to change what is taking place in the world. Even the smallest work that you may do, the smallest thing that comes forth as spiritual beings is going to help make the shift into the new age. And it is truly, and the new age is about sharing. It is no longer that Piscean age. The Piscean age is about teaching and learning about love. The new age is coming into the point of sharing. And so we can share in the smallest manner. In some cases, you're going to be much more visible in your work. But for even those of us that will be doing things in a small manner, it will have a great effect on the whole. So let us proceed now to conscious dying. I think we have to be very practical about what conscious dying is. First of all, we need to think in terms of being very practical about putting ourselves in the position to be able to work with those higher states of consciousness. And one of the ways to do that is to put your affairs in order beforehand. No matter what your age is, no matter who you are, it's important to put your affairs in order, whether it's financial, whether it's your personal affairs, whatever it may be. It's time now to look at that and to work with that. You need to plan in advance. And in the program that we had, that was, I began it, and then we brought in other teachers that did a phenomenal job in working with this. What they did was, and what we did was, that we had, you want to plan on the time when it comes for your passing. You want to be in a place of peace. You want to plan, you should plan your own funeral. You should plan all aspects of what is going to happen when the time comes for you to pass on. One of the things that I think is very important, if you have the opportunity, for those of us that are older, we have an opportunity to move into that state and probably lose some of the fear because we know it's coming. For younger people, it is more challenging because they don't think of dying. In many cases, our society is telling us that you want to live as long as you can. They're doing everything conceivable to convince you that you need to keep living. The next step in our lives, you might say, in our conscious life, is to be able to move into that other state without our bodies. Our bodies are the instruments for our soul, but there's a point when we will be removed from that body. We are still that soul. We are still the spiritual beings. But it is time to think in terms of when we make that transition. And so be practical, think in terms of what you wish for that time, who you want to be present when you pass on, what you want, what kind of environment you want to be in if you have that opportunity. It's really important to think about now. It is not to wait till the last minute. It is to concentrate on what is to come in the future and what it means when the time comes for you to pass on. Until we face our mortality, we can't fully live. It's time to deal with it now. I don't know who this author of this phrase is from, but I will say it. I like this quote. It says, "Death is like sugar. It sweetens life and makes it precious." And so if we live with a consciousness that we are going to pass on, we can enjoy our life more. We can put more energy into it. And so it's really important to think about death and what this means to us and what it's going to mean when the time comes. With awareness of the higher levels of consciousness, fear of death leaves us. When we are able to move into those other states of awareness, as we do in our dream state, as we do in our meditations, as we move into those states, the fear will disappear. There will be no fear. It will totally be eliminated. And so our work is to come to that point of being without fear and to anticipate what will come next. I love the Alice Bailey title of the book, Death, the Great Adventure. And I'm looking forward to that adventure. Life has many adventures, but what I anticipate now for my future, which may be short or may be long, is what is going to take place at this next step in my development as a spiritual being. With the practical out of the way and put into place, we can work towards this. We can do our spiritual work. We can allow ourselves the ability to move into those higher states. Thus, the transition into new life is going to be made a joyful experience. Now, whether you die suddenly or not, without having loved ones around us or having the certain environment you might envision, if you have been working with these higher states of consciousness, you are going to have an easy transition. So we have to always look in terms of what's going to be. Well, we can anticipate, we can actually ask that we have a certain kind of death. We can anticipate and ask, and my mother used to ask that she would have a peaceful death, that she'd be surrounded with her family, and she was. She prayed for that. And I love that she had her family around her, and we had an environment that was peaceful and quiet, and yet it was very sacred. And I think that's something important to think about. What do you want? Are there people that are very loud and disruptive? You don't want that in your environment. You want to have a peaceful environment, but yet a loving environment. And so think in terms of what it is and who you want present. Do you want people present? Do you want just certain people present? Do you want music? What do you want? You want what's going to help you be able to comfortably and calmly move into that new life. And so it can be difficult for those that are not older, I think. When you're older, you have the opportunity to slow down. You have the opportunity to contemplate more. You have the opportunity to pray more. You have the opportunity to reflect. And that is a gift. if you can live longer, you can have that opportunity when you're in your declining years. You are more or less forced into that to have a quieter life. It is really a gift. It is not, I think. We should not think of old age as something that is a detriment. It gives us opportunities. And so I think I'm grateful I've lived this long. I didn't expect, honestly, to live this long. I had two sisters that died very suddenly, and one had just turned 70, and the other one was about to turn 69. And everybody was waiting for me to die next because, of course, the three sisters were going to all die at the same time. I'm still around. I have bypassed them by several years. So they didn't have the same ideas and concepts I had about dying. They tried to live, and yet they were taken. When I have experienced being with people when they have passed on, many different people. And when this happened, I relate it to birth. There is a great joy when there is a child that is born. And there's this sense of happiness and joy. That too could happen when you're birthing into your new life. My experience has been that when somebody has passed on, there's almost an overwhelming sense of peace and an overwhelming sense of joy almost. Because you know you can feel it in the environment. You don't expect that. Even though there may be people, there may be tears of loss at the moment, there's still a certain sense of this release and joy and peace that comes with it. And I do believe that is to show us, that those that remain, that this is not something that has to be tragic. You really don't want somebody that's too hysterical in that place. You want a sense of peace, you want a sense of calm, and you want a sense of love to be given to those that are passing on. Frequently, they want someone to touch them. It helps them to be able to move out of their bodies and move into that new life. I want to tell you about my near-death experience because this also helps me to not fear death. When I was 18 years of age, I was swimming, and I was not a good swimmer. And what happened was I was trying to swim out to a dock in deep water, and all of a sudden I found myself sinking into the water. And I kept floating down and down and down. And I thought, I'm going to die. And all of a sudden, it was like my eyes were open, and I saw the stream of light coming down into the water, and I thought that must be the sun. And then I realized it was not the sun. It was a stream of light that came forth. And I relaxed into whatever was taking place. I didn't try to breathe. I just became calm, and I was drawn into that light. And in that light, I imagined, it was though there was a figure of light within that light, and I was drawn to it. And it was the most peaceful and most uplifting feeling I had had in my short 18 years. And all of a sudden, somebody pulled me out of the water. And I was angry because I wanted to go into that light. I wanted to be in that. It was such a peaceful, uplifting, phenomenal experience. And I didn't know how to put that in my life. I knew it was important, but yet I did not know what it all meant at that time. Some years later, I had another experience. I was in a car accident. I was unconscious for just moments. But in that time, I knew something happened, but I couldn't remember what it was. And once I had gone into the spiritual studies, and there was a workshop that was being done, and we were to go into a past life. And instead of going into a past life, I went into this remembrance that I couldn't remember what happened in that accident, but all of a sudden I remembered what took place when I was unconscious. And in that unconscious state, I was being moved up, and I saw this cluster of lights. And it was as though, I don't know if you know what fish eggs look like, but they're all clustered together, little balls. And it was this cluster that resembled that. And I was moving into it. And I heard very distinctly, "It's not your time. You have to go back." And I obviously went back into my body, and I was taken to the hospital and whatever. And I was angry at the time as well, because I wanted to be in that light. And I finally came into the realization that these were the souls, these were the lights, these was this group consciousness that I was attached to. And so it came to me that, again, I do not fear death because of this. It is something that is, it was a gift to me. Both times were gifts to me. And I do believe that it needs to be expressed, and people need to know that they need not fear, that this is a time of great release, a time of it's such a phenomenal time. So at this point in time, I cannot say I fear death. I anticipate it. I don't know when that's going to be, but when it comes, I know that I will be fine, that I will embrace it. Some of you may have had near-death experience, maybe not, but do know that I think people have it in order to express it, to let others know that you need not fear what is to come. I'd also like to, you could also think in terms of, particularly when you're with people that have not necessarily come into the knowledge that we have as spiritual seekers, that there are very good people. There are many people that do not have the understanding, but they are very much souls that are good and maybe advanced, unbeknownst to them. In this case, I'm talking about my mother. My mother was a very dear person. Everybody that met her loved her, and I loved her dearly. She was very faithful to her religion. Every night she knelt at her bedside, even when she could hardly get up and down, and she would say her prayers. And when it came time, she had a major heart attack, and her heart was very, very damaged. And for 9 months, which I thought was appropriate because 9 is that final number, you might say, she had her family around her. And when it came time for her to leave, my sisters and I were with her for several days as she had moved into an unconscious state. But prior to the unconscious state, what she said to us, she said, I see angels. She said, I see light. And she said, but no, you're my angels. But she expressed how she could see into that next dimension. And eventually she went into a coma and she did pass on. But just before she passed on, and I find this to be a very silly story in some respects, my mother, who never swore, she never used any crude language. We were with her, and I decided I needed to go home. I needed to rest, and I needed to shower because we had been staying with her overnight. And I went home, and I fell asleep. And I had this dream, and my mother came to me, and she said, she had told me she had an envelope, but she had her jewelry in. And she said, what she had told me prior to this time, when I die, I want you to give your sisters this jewelry. And so I'm in the sleep state, and she came to me and she said, now, damn it, you go and bring that envelope to them and give them this jewelry right now. So I got up and I took the envelope with jewelry and I took it to my sisters. Shortly after that, we were all holding our hands or feet or whatever. And all of a sudden I saw this, it was like a puff of smoke, and it came out from her heart center. And we knew that her consciousness, she actually had left her body. Her body continued to breathe, but it was as though it was an empty vessel. And shortly after that, with her family surrounding her, and I mean her entire family surrounded her, her body finally gave up. There again, it is that she saw that light. She saw the other side, you might say. She also was able to communicate with me in my dream state and to tell me what she wanted me to do. And so once that was done, she could leave. So it is such that there are so many examples out there of people passing. And if they're in the right environment, if they have faith, they can leave peacefully and joyfully. And it was. One of my relatives said to me, I've never seen anything like this. This was such a beautiful passing. And it really, truly was. So I say these things to you just as a reassurance, because probably you all know that, but maybe you don't. Just know that there is a life beyond. With the continuity of consciousness, it is for us now, we are ready as a human race to be able to move into those higher states. We are able to move into those other states of awareness and consciousness. We are able to move into those more sacred places. I think that this is what is important right now, because we are moving into a different time. It is up to us as a human race in order to survive or not survive. With our hearts open and our minds open and our connection to those higher realms, we are going to be able to help shift the consciousness of mankind. We are able to bring this time, this new time coming to us, the new age, the Aquarian age, into a time where we will care about each other, not because of who we are. We will be more tolerant. We will learn to share and to associate and help others in a way that in the past many have not been able to do. I think we are evolving. We are coming to this time now where we can have a major effect in the lives of others, as well as we can change our attitudes and come into a time where we will share, we will recognize our true oneness, because our oneness is what we are all about.